Wagwan. Hi, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrianne Murchison, and welcome to episode 14 of our Let's Start Healing podcast. You just heard me greet you with hi in Jamaican patois, Wagwan. And it's so apropos for our guest today, who is a native of Jamaica. I will introduce you to her in just a moment. You know what we say here, we have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. Before you meet Gnosisia Azna, our guest, I want to invite you to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram at Let's Start Healing Podcast. And also check out all of our episodes on our YouTube channel and at Apple Podcasts. And send me an email. Let me know what you think about the show. And also, maybe there's a particular aspect of spirituality that you would like us to explore. Send me a note at Let's Start Healing Podcast at gmail.com. So Gnosisia is someone that I know very well. She's a good friend. She is a Thai yoga practitioner, which if you have never had a Thai yoga massage before, you are truly missing out. And if you have had one, then you know how awesome it is. She pretty much uses all of her strength to stretch you, apply deep tissue massage and acupressure. And she is truly a healer. And as she is applying Thai yoga massage, you really realize how your body, every part of your body is connected. I mean, so often she might be working, say, on my lower leg, and I might feel it in my back. Or she might be working in my glute area, and then my arm will go up. It's something. And I often really encourage men to get Thai yoga massage because it's so wonderful for men who don't stretch that much. You know, it's really, really good. It's great for athletes. It's great if you're about to do some kind of athletic event or endurance event. It's just great to relieve stress and make sure that your body stays loose. So she will talk about that, but I'm such a believer in Thai yoga massage. I wanted to share a little bit about it. Her spiritual path is an interesting one, which she will share, as well as how she grew up in a non-traditional way and found her way to God through self-discovery. And I'm excited for you to meet Gnosisia. So let's get to it. Let's meet her and let's start healing. Gnosisia, we had a conversation a while back that as long as I've been knowing you, it was something that I heard for the first time when you were talking about how you grew up and about how you discovered God and your spiritual path. And I know you don't necessarily call what do you say, a father-mother God?
Yes,
that's how you refer. Father-mother God.
Sure, because the Creator is both father and mother. That's both energies.
Absolutely.
So, we tend, and I sometimes say father, the father this, the father that, because that's part of our culture. Our inherent culture is to think of God as a he, and sometimes I still do it, but for the most part, most times, especially when I'm talking to God, I say Father, Mother, God. It's just more all inclusive in honoring the female energy as well.
Yes, yes. It's so funny because the other day I was in a discussion group on spirituality, and I always think of God. I always identify God as a male figure, although I do have a female figure that I pray to. Right. But someone made a comment about God being more like a feminine energy that I had never considered before. And they mentioned how the energy is more allowing, and they equated that with a feminine energy, and male energy they perceived as something more forceful. And that's not what God is in that person's mind, or mine, actually. So I thought that was interesting because I had never really considered God as a female energy, as I know, people do, but now I'm enlightened.
Well, for me personally, I believe it's equal and opposite energies that needs to be balanced. The union needs to be balanced. I'm a female expression on the outside, but on the inside, I have very masculine ideas and thoughts about how I see myself and my capabilities, etc.
Right.
I see myself as directly equal to a male energy expression.
Absolutely.
Male human expression. So I don't see one greater or the other. I just see them as two different energies that we must balance within ourselves. I mean, you can't have a child without a male and a female parent. So, it's just a balance, a healthy balance that I think that we do need to always express, because even if it's a male expression, you're still from a woman, so you have a female energies within yourself, and the goal is to actually balance those two within yourself, but not losing your integrity, not losing the integrity of your journey as a male or as a female.
Absolutely. That's so beautifully put.
Yeah.
So talk about, if you will, how you grew up and your discovery of your spirituality.
Well, my childhood. But first of all, I'm somewhat of an abandoned child. My father took me from my mother when I was about 4 years old because she became mentally depressed and she was just not able to take care of me. So
This is in Jamaica?
Yeah, in Jamaica. And he took me from her, which I think was the right thing to do. He wasn't the best parent. I was pretty much on my own. I mean, I took care of myself. I took care of my younger brother, which is not my full brother, it's my half brother, which he had with a different mother. But I took care of myself. I mean, I was like a tomboy for probably up until I was like about 8-9 years old.
Wow.
But it was fun. Thank God. The times were different then. I was off in the bushes, playing with the boys, riding, biking, helping them shoot birds. So, my neighbor, I always remember this little girl. She was my neighbor and she taught me how to crochet. She showed me how to crochet. I'd never forget that girl. I don't remember what her name was, but she taught me how to crochet. So it was a very, I guess it was kind of somewhat lonely because, you just never had anybody to say, love you and show you affection and, but at least it was safe, to a certain extent. And then, my father, decided to move to another part of the country. And, I guess somewhere during the discussion, my stepmom, and him decided that they were just going to leave me in the country, because they were heading to another part of the country, and maybe I was just too much of a responsibility. That's what I'm kind of figuring.
And who did you stay with?
My granduncle's family from my father's family, because I never grew up with my mother's family, so I don't really know anything about them. But all my relatives that I will talk about are from my father's side, and so so they left me in the country, this quaint little town called Bogwalk, and I always remember because my great uncle, granduncle had this bakery, brick oven, and they would make these beautiful, delicious hot cross buns. To this day, I remember that bun. I mean, it was the best bun ever as I had a child. And I was there for a year in the country. And once again, I was
How old were you?
at that time, probably about 7 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there were, in those days, I guess it's kind of like here in Georgia where you bury your dead on the family property. So I remember skipping across tombstones and graves, but it was, once again, I was left on my own to do what I wanted to do. And I, as a child, I escaped a lot. I was always in my head imagining stuff. And so I guess that was how I dealt with not being loved or wanted or, or appreciated. So anyway, my aunts heard that I was in the country and that I wasn't going to school or anything. So they went and they got me, took me back home to live with them in Spanish Town, and enrolled me back in the same school that I was going. It was a private school run by the nuns. I remember when I was living with my father, he would forget to pick me up. I would be at the convent waiting till 8, 9 o'clock at nighttime. He would forget to pick me up right from school.
Wow.
But what I find interesting, and it didn't really hit me until years later, when I started working on myself, what hit me is that not once did any of those nuns ever sat and play with me as a child. I mean, here it is, I'm left alone constantly. I mean, I can remember maybe once they brought out some cookie and some milk.
You were sitting on the steps outside in the classroom?
Convent, at the convent. They would bring me over to the convent. So I would sit on the veranda of the convent on a bench. But it was right there. They never engaged me as a child.
That's amazing.
Years later, I'm thinking about it because as you start doing work on yourself, you start realizing what love is. And I'm like, it's crazy how, but anyway, so my aunts came and they took me to live with them and they whipped me into shape. Not beat.
Right.
No. Man, they made a lady out of me.
They said we're taking this tomboy and we're going to turn her into a little girl.
Oh my God. Yeah. I had to comb my eyebrows. There was somebody taking up my school lessons with me in the evenings, making sure I was doing my homework, all of that stuff. And, thank God they did come and get me because I don't know what would have happened to me, probably would have had 10 kids by now. I don't know. So anyway, it was a good journey with them, and from a standpoint that I went from being third to last in my class to being third in the whole class. Oh, I was a female spelling bee champion of my school.
So you had stability and you felt some security and love.
Yes. So there was accountability. There was not like hugs and kisses and I love you, but at least there was accountability. And over time, I felt like, my aunt cared for me. She was not a very affectionate person. I mean, she has grown to be an affectionate person now, and that was fine,
How many years did you stay with your aunt?
Till I was an adult. Till I was 27 when I moved out.
No kidding.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I should have moved out long before that. But that's just the thing in the Caribbean. You don't kids tend to stay home longer. Right. For a variety of reasons.
Were you did you have a connection to God in early adulthood and teenage years? Or
well, my aunt made it mandatory for me. All the time that I lived with her, she made I lived with her till I was 27, but up until I was 13 years old, she made it mandatory for me to go to church every Sunday. So every Sunday I had to go to church. She didn't go, but she made sure I did. And it was boring. I was also into confirmation class because it was a Catholic church. Right. And I also remember, too, not having any connection with anybody there. I just don't get it. Here I was a child in church every Sunday, and there just wasn't any effort,
No
great
connection or
effort.
love.
Yeah. When I look back at it, but anyway, the minute that she said, when I was 13, and she said, well, you're big enough now, you can decide whether you want to go or not. Boom. That was it.
Right.
Never went back.
What were you thinking? Do you remember what your thoughts were about God at that time? Was it just like something
I was
that you
still
didn't?
floating in a cloud. The God concept wasn't even registering in me.
Mm-hmm.
I went because I had to go to church, because it was mandatory for me to go.
Right.
And my aunt said I was to go. But there was no connection, because I was so much in my mind, as a child, to deal with the instability, especially in my early years. You just escape. Some kids are more extrovert. Some kids may become angry. I was more of an introvert when I was growing up, because there was not that environment that I could express myself safely, I think. Growing up with my aunts was very fun, though. We had a very social household,
Mm-hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
social, constant parties and get together.
Mm-hmm.
It was really a fun time growing up with them. But the whole God thing didn't. I remember by the time I became a young adult, like in my early 20s, I decided that I was going to go to different churches, because I felt I kept asking myself, what was God? And I thought something was wrong with me, why I couldn't feel God. And so I went to every church there was to go to, and I just didn't have a connection. At the age of 27 years old, I moved to New York City, and my world just opened up a lot moving to New York City. It was definitely a good decision to make. I met people from all walks of life, and backgrounds, and I lived in a city in Jamaica, so we were, it's not like I didn't meet people from different countries and stuff, but it was just different. I was on my own now, and then I started doing yoga. I think it was my very, very good friend who told me to go check out a class in yoga. I think that's how I started yoga. And I started doing yoga, and I also started studying the Eastern philosophy, the science behind it. And, that made sense to me about God. Mm-hmm. That made better sense to me about what God is.
And what was your understanding at that time?
I just never connected to the Bible.
Right.
I never connected to how the Bible was written, the language used. And I would hate the feeling when I left church, there was this guilt. Yeah, when you went to church,
yes.
There's this guilt.
So you walked out of church feeling guilty.
You're gonna die if you don't repent, and your soul is lost for it.
Right.
And if God comes tomorrow, your soul is in perdition or God knows what. So I never liked the feeling of leaving church. It never inspired me to want to go back there.
So I grew up Catholic,
right,
and I didn't realize until I was an adult that I would zone out. I would zone out during Mass until we got to the point of communion. And that part was very holy to me. And so when I shifted later in life, when I shifted to A Course in Miracles, and that really speaks to everything I always believed about God, really in my heart.
Right.
And so I would still I would practice A Course in Miracles, study A Course in Miracles on Sunday mornings with my group, but I would still go to church and I would still get a lot out of church. But the more the years have gone on, I don't get as much out of church, because as an adult, I did start getting a lot out of the message of the homily. And, but it's hard now because I do hear God is a mystery and sinner and things like that. And that it doesn't resonate with me, because God is not a mystery to me. And
He's right
you know,
there
and
where
I never
you
did
are.
think of myself as a quote unquote sinner.
Right.
But so those two things, it's harder and harder now to, when I do go to church, because I do like being in that. The Catholic Church can feel very holy to me, but it's just when they start talking,
Right.
sometimes,
yes,
you know,
there is something about churches that you do feel like it's holy. You know,
Yeah.
it's quiet. I don't know if because we've been programmed to think that way,
right?
but there is something. I think the only thing I really liked about church, and I can only talk about the Catholic Church because that's the one I went to the most, was the songs. And I still know the songs.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I still know all the songs, and I will sing them. But now I sing them, and they have a different meaning for me, a deeper meaning.
Right.
And the words may not be exactly saying how I think of God, but because I know how to translate it to be the truth, to feel the inner truth of it, I can sing it. I can sing the songs.
Right.
So I think the only thing I have that resonates to me still would be the songs. It's not the people. It's not the message. It is not anything like that. I think for me is that growing up, but I never had a discussion with anybody about God.
Growing up.
Yeah. It just never.
Do you recall the occasion of your first conscious experience with God, like your personal experience with God?
Feeling.
Do you remember the
exact time? No, because I was actually feeling it. I didn't even know at the time that I was. You know what I mean? You know, I was actually, God's presence was always there for me, in terms of the subtle feelings in my body, the shifts in the energy, that feeling of peace or calm that can come over you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it was always there. But as I got to get closer and closer to the energy of being present within myself, because you have to remember, my personality type is, I'm a Libra. Woo-hoo. So like all air signs, we're up in the clouds. So my childhood experience, because I'm a thinker, I'm more mental. My experience is more mental. It's, on the mental, logical plane of experiencing. So if I'm in a room or if I'm going somewhere, my first experience is how I think, not how I feel.
In terms of what do you think about what's going on?
Right.
Who's here in the room?
Right. Just totally on the outside.
So you're not thinking. That's interesting because you're an energy person.
Yes.
But when you come in the room, you're not really feeling the energy.
No.
And I am.
Right. But now I've gotten a little bit better at it, or I should say a lot better.
So what was the, I imagine it was gradual. You mentioned yoga. What was the thing that
yoga did that? Yoga, and you have to remember you have 3 parts to yourself or 4 parts, to your entire being. You have the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And what yoga helped to do for me was to help me work on all aspects of those parts of me, the physical, the mental, the emotional, all of that. You have to start asking yourself. I remember the first time, I guess you're right. My first awakening was, I remember I was 28 years old, and I said to myself, I need to be happy and I need to be healthy. Those were the 2 things I remember saying to myself. And that shifted me. I went on a different kind of diet, a more plant-based diet. So in that first year, I gave up red meat, and I gave up red meat, and I gave up chicken probably immediately right after too, and everything except fish for that first year. And I do believe when you ask for stuff, you are given the tools, because I asked to be healthy and to be happy.
As in you prayed, as
no.
when I say pray, I mean when you ask, were you
I
asking
wasn't
an
asking
energy?
God. I
or-
wasn't asking God or anything. At that point, it was just still mental. It was recognizing the fact that my body was changing. And now, you're reading all this information about, what you're eating and stuff. And I decided I want to change my body. I mean, want to change how my body,
How you felt.
how I felt,
Absolutely.
and I did that. And my body went right back to feeling how I was when I was 20 years old. Once I changed my whole habits of eating and stuff like that.
And you did that around age 28.
Yeah, I started at age 28. But it was a gradual process. I never forced anything. I think it's important you don't force anything.
Right.
It's so funny because, like I said, I made that commitment, and then the next thing I know are different people sent in my life to help me along with the process. The first was a person, my ex. We dated for 2 years. He was very instrumental in helping to open up my world, not just health wise, because he was a vegetarian, but socially, politically, economically, all these things I just opened up my world in terms of seeing things differently. And so we did it for 2 years, and that was really instrumental in starting me on a particular point. Doing those 2 years, I met some wonderful people. One of which is a very dear friend in my life. She's like my mom, my sister. I call her my spirit mom. Everybody knows, who she is. So, she, I get down on my knees every day and thank God that she was sent to me in my life. She has been a very impactful, truthful human being.
I see you getting emotional.
Oh, yeah.
And
she's the love of my life. Yeah.
And she is your mom.
My energy mom.
Your energy mom.
Yeah. And I love my aunts because my aunts really are my mom. And they did great. They did the best they know how. But I've always been a different kind of a child. And even then I was different because they said I was different. I just didn't know why I was different. I would dress differently, even when I was growing up in Jamaica, I dressed differently, and they would be like, "Oh, that's how she is. That's how she dresses." So I was always different.
And did you say your mom is still living? Your biological mom?
Yes, and I have not been in touch with her, and that is still bugging the hell out of me. And one day, I will try. And
do you know where she's living? Or?
I have a general idea because I never grew up with her, and it just was I never grew up with her, and any relationship with her was never encouraged because there's that stigma attached to mental illness,
which is less and less these days. I hope
less and less. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So, in terms of your conscious awareness of God, it sounds like you were just saying it was kind of it's been an evolution. It was an evolution. And so when was your conscious awareness? And I know you see God in all things.
Everything.
Yes. But when did you even realize that? How did that happen?
That's what yoga teaches you, that God is in everything. And as you have to work on, like I said, you have to work on the mental part of you, the emotional, the spirit. You read these books. They inspire you. They help to open up your awareness. And so once that information is put in your mind, you start looking for it. So you start looking for it. You start appreciating those things. And, everything shifts. The food you eat helps to shift your energy because what you think, what you eat is what you are.
Absolutely.
Because everything is energy.
Absolutely.
That's what we tend to forget. We're so immersed in the physical world that we don't think of everything as energy. Everything that is made has intention behind it. And that is what the crux of the situation is, the intention. Whatever. Sometimes we think about certain things and we follow through with actions and it falls apart or it doesn't go how we think it should go. It's because the intentions behind it weren't of truth.
So you were doing this, you were on that kind of a path for quite a while before you decided that you were going to become a practitioner. Or
no, I never even decided that in a sense. I was still up until my journey. I started doing yoga. Like I said, at that moment, this is all in New York City. At that moment, once I made that decision that I was going to change my whole way of life, the person was sent, the book is sent, and I'm still doing yoga.
The book being what?
Oh, different books. My first spiritual book was Paramahansa Yogananda, the autobiography of him, which was given to me by my spirit mom. That was one of my first early books. I still have it. And do you know, when he died, his body lay in state for 30 days without no sign of decomposition. None.
Oh my.
30 days. He wasn't, 30 days. That's how spiritually evolved he was. But, all the tools were given to me when I needed them. I call it the flow. I was really in a great flow. Then I was just soaking up all the knowledge, the experience, all of that. You keep asking me about my first time, just God awareness, and I can't say it's like a definitive time. What I do remember, the first time that I actually heard God, and I remember one day I was hiking, and I did hear God whisper in my head, and I would hear God whisper all the time in my head.
Can you share, or do you remember what the whisper was?
I was writing poems at that time. And, I was writing poems, and I don't remember exactly which one of the poems or whatever, but I did hear. But the first definitive time that I heard God's voice was, and it's an amazing experience. And I heard a male voice, and that voice was not just in my head; it vibrated my entire body.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. And it's a voice that I cannot explain or describe. And yeah.
But it did not scare you.
No. Why would it? It's like my whole
I didn't think it did.
My whole entire being was vibrating.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a voice that I cannot. It was a booming, clear voice. And it was chastising me about something that I wasn't doing right, which was fine. It was a voice, it was just amazing.
That's amazing.
It was an amazing experience. So I know I have lots more work to do, because I do believe the ultimate goal is for us to be able to communicate with the Creator at will.
I agree. So, but what about in meditation? Do you communicate in meditation? I do.
No, not as well as I want to. My brain is still very much in control.
And you know what? You know why I know that from experience? Do you know why?
Why? Why?
Because we did eye gazing.
Yes,
I remember.
And
so eye gazing, the way that I wanted to do it with you, this was probably more than 3 years ago,
right.
5 years ago or something like that.
Right.
But the way that I wanted to do it was one person's the giver and one person is the receiver.
Right.
So I was, you were having a session. You had a partner Thai yoga session.
At a Thai partner.
So
yoga,
everyone else there everyone was partnered up.
Right. I remember.
Right. And so you and I partnered up.
Right.
And everybody else cooperated.
Right.
Except for you. And so
what did I do again?
So this is what happened. So I was the giver. And so I was just giving you love.
Right.
And then you were just to receive.
Right.
And we would do that for 3 minutes. And then we would say I would say at the end of 3 minutes what I picked up from you.
Right.
And you would say what you picked up from me in our individual roles. And then the point was to switch. Right. But you resisted me.
Yes.
The whole time.
Yes.
I was so frustrated.
That's that brain. I'm telling you, it's such a dominant part of my experience. I've had to work to even be in touch with my feelings. I've had to work over the years to incorporate. I mean, my spirit mom used to say to me, "My God, you're the first person I know who would get over a relationship so fast." I would date for, in 2 weeks, I was over it because I never liked, if we broke up, 2 weeks, I'm done. I'm like, oh, because I hate feeling sad or moody.
Well, that's so, the reason that surprises me is because you're such, in your work as a practitioner of Thai yoga massage, I mean,
it's very meditative to me.
It's meditative, and as a person who's received it, I see what the gift that you're giving, and I know how I feel when I walk in versus when I walk out.
Right, information just comes to me, just like that. But then it's because it's when I'm doing my work, it just puts me at a different place, and also my hands. My hands, I think, are the most receptive part of my body.
So you're not thinking aren't you very much instinctual too in your work?
Yes.
So you're
I'm
not necessarily thinking.
I mean, when I do start, because all my sessions, I like to talk to my clients. So when I'm talking to you, when you just get there, I'm trying to see, where you are in this moment. What's going on with you? Is there any part of your body that I need to focus on, depending on what's going on with you, because everything is in the know. And then that information is there somewhere. And then in my mind, I start off, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to do just lightly and vaguely. I'm going to start here and focus on there. And then spirit takes over. There stops being, how would you say, an order of things?
Right.
I mean,
so you do have that. You do have an experience.
Oh yeah. So in my healing work is where I am more conscious or more connected God wise.
Absolutely.
Father, Mother, God gives me information. I would just hear, do this, do that, go there. So in my healing work, that's where I'm most and in nature. That's really where those two places that I'm most connected are most present, because the energy is always there. It's just a matter of how you are aware of it.
Right.
How you tap in. The grace of God is always there.
Right.
It's all free will. You can tap in, tap out.
Do you ever ask God questions?
Yes, and I'm working at being better at it. I think when I'm talking to God, I have a conversation, but I just don't ask questions. I have a conversation.
Absolutely.
But I don't ask questions, and I need to learn.
What does that mean? Do you make comments, or what?
Oh, yeah.
What's the exchange like?
I would say, Father, Mother, God, these people are the worst ever. And then sometimes little information will come through. It's not like I'm hearing a booming voice, but information will come through, and I'll be chuckling, and so I do talk, but not like in a definitive where I'm hearing a voice in my head, so to speak. It's just that there's an impression of information. And so I know that you can actually hear God's voice consistently. I know that. I have people in my life who are doing that easily. Yes. And so that's something that I have to work on within myself. It comes and it goes.
Yes.
And I have to make it more often. And that has to just being still and more disciplined and being still and quiet. I'm still too busy.
Yeah.
We can only be one with the Creator when we stop and forcing our will on it.
I've been trying to be present lately.
Yeah.
Being really intentional about being present. And of course I'm not successful all the time. Sure. But it's amazing to me how when I am present, how things will just go
and flow
so well if I just stay present. And and I can even earlier today, I feel like the last couple of days, my ego's just been on fire, So even with my ego on fire, for lack of a better expression, I still have been talking to the Holy Spirit, to God, to Jesus, and, just acknowledging, yes, my ego's going crazy right now, but I'm still vigilant and, to be connected to you.
Right.
And I feel a difference. It's not like I'm continuing on in a funk. I will shift.
We shift
pretty
in and
quickly.
out. Yes, we shift in and out, and the challenge is not to be shifting. The challenge is to make meditation a 24/7 act.
Absolutely.
That's the challenge.
Absolutely.
The challenge is to get out of the brain experience, and it's not like we can turn the brain off. We can't, because the brain is a computer. It collects information through our senses. So the challenge is just not to let it be the decision maker in our moments. It's there, but it's not there.
It's true.
The challenge is to balance both.
It's true.
While
true.
While the brain is experiencing that, the other part of you, which is your true God self center, you're aware, and that you can communicate and balance both at the same time.
It's true. I had 2 experiences earlier today that were annoying, and I wanted to react. One of them in particular, I really wanted to react to this person. It's through email. Someone had sent me an email, and I wanted to respond in a certain way. And then at the same time, I know that that's not for my benefit spiritually. That's not for my benefit. And so I'm trying to talk to myself about, well, do I want to not be angry with this person? Because part of me does want to be angry with this person. I'm not ready to not be angry with this person.
Right.
And, but what I ended up doing was just giving in. I let myself feel what I was feeling, but also, I started focusing on how I wanted to feel.
Right.
And I listened to, certain music that'll take me out of a space. And so I see that as progress for myself, because I could just stay in that space. Right. And just let it last.
I think, I think what we have to remember is that when people do things or act up, that's not their true selves. It's the brain.
Absolutely.
And I had a similar experience recently with a client. She's a new client, and she kept canceling or rescheduling, I should say, about 4 times. She finally did get here, and when she did get here, she was all flustered and just in a bad, crappy mood, and I just never engaged her. I just responded with love from my mind and from my heart, and I listened to her, what she was saying. And I could have easily gotten my ego involved, because that's all it is. Right. That ego, that sense of I, which is not even real. It's just right. And so I let her be, and because I just let her be and just sent her love, she was relaxed. And she had a great session, and I had a great session. Because believe you me, I can have a bad session too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Thankfully, I haven't experienced that.
No, when I say a bad session, I mean that
it's not a good experience for
right.
you.
Right. Just like how you said you were trying to reach me, and it was very frustrating. Yes, sometimes I'm working on people, and I can't get through either.
Right. So we don't have a lot of time left.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask you a couple of questions specifically. One is, so obviously you're a healer. Do you see yourself as a seeker as well?
No, I don't. There's nothing to seek anymore. Whatever it needs, it's right here with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I no longer think I have to find God. I know exactly where God is. I am in touch with the Creator. So I don't need. It's funny because all the spiritual books, and I've read tons of metaphysical books. And those books have all helped me to really figure out what really the truth of what my journey is supposed to be about. the weird thing is that I can now appreciate the Bible. So the weird thing is that I've come like 360.
How so?
Because I can interpret it
in a different way, in a new way.
Yeah, yeah.
And
so,
what do you see your journey as?
I see my journey as love. I see my journey as self-discovery, self-reconnecting. Know who I am. I know who I am.
Is your journey the same as your purpose? Do you think you have a purpose, or we have a purpose? And
of course. Oh, definitely.
What's it feel like to be a healer?
To be a healer, you have to be a giver. You just have to be a giver. That's where it starts. You can't look to take. You have to give. And everything about truth and love is being a giver. Because as you give, so you shall receive.
What you just said is something that I don't think I've ever shared before with you. And I was going to ask you about if you are such a giver outside of your work. You're such a giver.
And I don't even think that I am. That's when we are our worst enemies to our own selves, because I don't even think that I'm a giver. I think I could give more, or I should give more.
You are a real giver, and so I was curious if that was a part of your spiritual journey.
It's always been a part of my innate personality. Yeah, I've always been a kind, loving person. I was more so from a intellectual, logical space, but my heart was always open. My heart was always open. So I was always a loving person. But now I even know in coming to love myself more and to see myself reflected in everybody else, that love has even opened up really more. Because we are all reflections of each other. Everything that somebody does, I can see that I've done that myself or gone through that whole experience myself at some point in life. So, we can't all stand on our high horses and be judgmental.
Absolutely.
Every insecurity that everybody else has at some point, whether through childhood or through some aspects of adulthood, you can see yourself in that person. I mean, some lessons you no longer practice. I mean, some lessons you have learned. But that's not just to say that you shouldn't be able to empathize.
Is there a lesson that you have learned?
To love myself more.
To love yourself.
To love myself first before anybody else.
Because you can't really love anybody else if you don't love yourself. Unless you know
to love yourself. And people think that loving yourself is being able to give yourself things. That has nothing to do with it. Loving yourself is knowing who you truly, truly are, which is nothing physical, which is the spirit within, which is your God self, the spirit within. That's your true self. And once you let that, and that's the only energy that could ever possibly love you the best. No human being can love you like that energy. That's where all peace, all happiness, and all joy come from.
Inside. Okay, so how would you describe Thai yoga massage? And then I'll describe it.
Life. Would you believe it? Before I even go into that, would you believe it that Thai yoga, I never even thought that this massage was anything for me to do. I had a roommate in New York who was in massage school. One of my best friends is a personal trainer. Never in my wildest dreams that I ever was even interested in the two.
And how many years have you been a practitioner?
15 years.
15 years.
Yes.
Okay.
So I leave New York, come to Georgia. My spirit mom said, "Hey, I saw this school information. This looked like something you could do." I read 2 sentences. Oh, it has yoga. Okay, I could do it. And this journey, this Thai yoga thing has been like a godsend in my life. It has taught me discipline. it has taught me belief in myself, that I could do a business, take care of myself. I mean, it pretty much, I would say this business brought me to God, really, in a sense. Yeah. It deepened, I should say, well, it deepened my relationship with the Creator then, I should say.
So describe what it is for people who don't know.
Oh, it's a beautiful art form. It was created in Thailand. It's a combination of Thai acupressure, which inherently from the Chinese, and the Buddhist monks practice yoga. So it's a combination of Thai acupressure and yoga. It's done traditionally on the floor on a futon mat, fully clothed. I mean, it deals with the body as a whole mechanism. It just doesn't treat one part of the body. It treats it treats the body as a connecting vehicle or a connecting entity. And treatment normally starts at the feet, because the feet is the foundation of the body. So it starts at the feet and goes all the way up to your head. And it's the Thai acupressure along the energy meridians. And while there's pressure and kneading along the energy meridians, there's also the stretching or assisted yoga stretches. I think of it as the body fixer. It's great for folks, especially who have lower back, mid back, upper back, and hip issues. But I mean, overall, it's just a great body fixer.
It is. Mm-hmm. And so, for people, lay people, I like to describe it as that you're stretching the person, and you're using. I mean, I'm just so fascinated how you use your body
as leverage,
right,
to apply pressure.
Exactly. And yes. I'm amazed at the strength you have, and to see men, because I used to see the men who were your clients, and just to see how they are when they walk in, when they walk in versus when they walk out, or vice versa. And and to be able to, I always think this is a great thing for athletes.
It is.
I always think of that it's great for athletes. And
it's somewhat similar to sports massage in a sense, because of some of the stretching, but it's more of in my opinion, more of a thorough, in-depth, working of the body. Like I said, because it treats the body as a connecting entity, as opposed to being in segments. Oh, we're going to work on this part, then we're going to work on that part. No, there's intention and purpose to everything. We start at the feet, because if you do acupressure points on the feet, it automatically sends information along the energy meridians to relax the muscles in the back and the legs.
And I can feel, when you might be working on, say, my shin or my calf,
right,
and then I feel it, in my arm,
all over your
in
body,
my back,
in different places.
Yes.
It realigns the spine. People tell me all the time, "Oh my God," at the end of the session, "I feel like I'm 2 inches taller," and I'm like, wouldn't that be great if I could bottle this and sell this? I'd be rich. How many people who said they want to be taller? My God, come to see Gigi, but but it really, it's great for the spine. It loosens the whole spine. It lengthens it. And that's why it's a great exercise for people. It's a great modality for everybody. I mean, you don't have to have issues to do it. You can do it just to maintain and to keep your body in flow. But as long as you haven't had any serious injuries or, then, pretty much, you can use it as a tool to help you heal your body and keep your body in balance. I think of it as the body fixer. It's great. It's awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Gnosisia Azna. And so, for anyone listening, what is the best way to get in touch with you if they wanted to?
I'm still old school. Call me. My number is 404-438-1986, 404-438-1986, or text. I do have phone conversations with all my clients before I see them. So I'm still old school. I like to talk to people and see what's going on with them and see if I connect. Because quite possibly, I might be able to help or to facilitate some change, or it might not. Sometimes I can tell by just talking to you if it's a situation that's gonna be a good one, a good energy exchange.
Right.
Yeah, it's all about the creator's will. We have to ask the creator all the time if this is something that we should do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Remember to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, listen to all of our episodes on our podcast channel on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and send me that email at letstarthealingpodcast@gmail.com. Let's start healing.